Hey, everybody, welcome to Navel Gazing, the Valley Indie podcast, or in this case, a vlogcast, if that's a word, I think it is. My name is Eugene Driscoll. I'm a reporter with valleyindy.org. It's an online newspaper covering Ansonia, Derby, and Seymour. So I've been doing a bunch of these interviews with ward candidates for the Board of Alderman candidates in the different wards in the city of Ansonia. And I've had a blast doing them so far. I wish I had Zoom and the knowledge to do this back in 2009 when the Valley Indie launched, because I think it says something to hear candidates in their own words, in their own voices, unfiltered, talk about themselves and the city of Ansonia. So the goal here is just meet the candidates, right? There's no gotcha. I'm not looking to stir the pot or anything like that. I'm just looking to have a conversation with the candidates about who they are and why they're running. So it is with my great pleasure that I introduce a person who probably needs no introduction if you lived in the Valley for any amount of time, Alderman Diane Stroman. Welcome to the program, Diane.
Oh, thank you, Gene. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So we're talking Ward 4, right? That's how bad my memory is.
Yes, we are.
And where, generally speaking, or what areas of town does Ward 4 cover? Because I'm an ignoramus with that stuff.
Well, Ward 4 actually covers, it's funny, it's almost like a square around Griffin Hospital area. But it's High Street, Leicester Street, Howard Avenue, Grove Street. You have the smaller streets, the Bassett Streets, Park Jackson Street, Day Street. It's in the Rufus Street, Russell Street, Francis, Addison, all those, they kind of surround the Griffin Hospital. So if you look, if you're standing in front of Griffin, you're like to the right of Griffin Hospital.
And all right, so you're not far from me, and I'm in Derby, but I'm not that far from there at all. So
right. Well, we go down Division Street down to Clifton Avenue, Pershing Drive, down in that area.
And you're an incumbent. Were you first elected just 2 years ago?
Yes, sir.
It's crazy because it seems like you've been on the board for, I don't know, these last 2 years. Time, I don't know what happened to time, but
time just flew right by, and COVID certainly didn't help it.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, Gene, I was just talking to someone the other day, and I was saying, actually, somebody should look at actually those positions being 4 years versus 2 years, because 2 years go by so fast. And when you're new, especially when you're a new person on the board, you have that learning time frame, that learning process. And then by the time you get finished learning and figuring things out and trying to do things, it sometimes takes a little more than 2 years to be able to see your accomplishments.
Right. I feel like that. I'm not supposed to editorialize, but I grew up in Westchester County, Somers, New York, and I covered politics over there for a while. And it was always 4-year terms. Mm-hmm. And coming to the Valley, and especially Ansonia and Derby, where you have sort of systemic issues you have to deal with. And it's almost like a little bit of a part-time attitude when it comes to government, where you don't have part-time issues like the factories and all that, the former mills that are existing. Those are tough issues, but I guess nobody wants to hear from me. They want to hear from you. So Diane, the first thing I want to ask you about, I've had you on during the Great Give, so some of this will be repetitive, but go through your background a little bit. You were at Team for years. You were at IBM. Tell people a little bit about yourself, if you would.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been in Ansonia for 70 years, grown up here. I'm a graduate of Ansonia High School and Albertus Magnus College. I'm married. I live on High Street with my husband. I have 2 children, and I have three grandchildren. My work experience was I actually worked at Uniroyal Footwear, where they made kids sneakers, and the chemical division. I worked in industrial relations, and then I went to the engineering department, and I did Fortran programming for a while. Left Uniroyal for a career move, and went to work for IBM, where I was a customer engineer, which was actually going around the state fixing computers. And at that time, there were only 2 females doing the job. And actually, I was the only African-American doing it. So that was quite an experience. And I moved up through the ranks in IBM and ended up being an administrative manager. And I stayed there until 1993. And in June of 1993, I decided to look for something different because of the commute. I was working in Norwalk for years,
Hmm.
and the job moved to Stanford. And I felt strongly I did not want to take that commute to Stanford. I had a young daughter at home that I felt it wasn't fair to her after being on the parkway for a couple of hours, and coming home and having to deal with her with school and all, that I probably needed to do something closer to home, hopefully. So I stepped out on faith and took a, oh, there's my dog.
I
Took a
was going to
pick.
say that happened to me yesterday. My dog started ringing the bell. It's okay.
Sorry.
No, it's
uh,
fine. It's fine. We're human beings, right? That's what I hope to convey more than anything out of all this. You know, the Board
yeah,
of Aldermen, you're not getting paid $100,000 a year. I'm not getting paid $200,000. Like we're just people communicating.
exactly. And so I stepped out on faith, didn't know what I was going to do. And actually ran into Richard Knoll, who was the CEO at Team, and had a conversation and put my resume in. And I was hired as Team as a community service director. And through the years, I moved into different positions. I did marketing development. I managed all the programs at Team Incorporated. Wrote several programs for job training programs there. And when I left and I retired in 2018, I retired as the executive vice president of Team. So now I'm working part-time at the Ansonia Public Schools as the mentor coordinator.
Oh,
So
okay. I wasn't
that's
aware of
me.
that.
Yeah. So, right.
So one thing, I mean, obviously, your civic engagement. I mean, you've won not won, but you've earned and received every humanitarian award, in the Naugatuck Valley in our area. So that speaks for itself.
Which I'm
Why did
truly
you?
appreciative of.
But why did you? After all that and having your team, I mean, team helps. It's incredible what team does. You can't say enough about what humans helping humans and what team does and helps people navigate, different systems and literally gets food onto people's plates or people in need.
Right.
Why did you decide to run for the board of aldermen? Because I always see sort of local politics as it can be a little rough and tumble. It can be a little nasty at times, and Ansonia is sort of emerged from this very nastiness that was happening a few years back. But what motivated you to run for the board of aldermen 2 years ago?
Because Gene, I wanted to make a difference. I, instead of sitting back and complaining about things, I'm like, versus being part of the problem, why not be part of the solution, basically. So I love Ansonia. Ansonia is in my heart. I will never leave Ansonia. I always laugh and tell people I'll be up at Pine Grove Cemetery. So, so my thing was just wanted to stay involved, something different. As far as politics, it's interesting because I always tell people I don't like politics. And when I say I don't like politics, I don't like that interfighting and stuff that happens within politics. I truly believe that as individuals, if you want to make a difference, you run to get the position naturally. But once you're there, it shouldn't make a difference if you have an I, if you have a D, or if you have an R in front of you behind your name. We're there to do the best what we can to make the community a better place for people to be able to live. And that was my thing. My thing was, you know what? Can't sit back and complain. You have to go in and be, again, part of the solution. So, it was like giving back.
When you reflect on the past 2 years, I know it's been only 2 years, and COVID sort of has shaded everything. But what do you think your role has been, and is there anything you can point to and say like, hey, I'm proud of that happened over the last 2 years?
No, that's interesting. Well, from years ago, from where you actually seen how the board worked. I used to go to some of the meetings, and you really could see, individuals sitting there butting heads and arguing and everybody coming with their own agendas. I will say that I haven't found that with the board over the last 2 years. I think we kind of been working, kind of cohesively together, which I'm very proud of. I think that's great. Um, I, my work with the senior center, trying to get the senior center built, and finally we're going to get nails hammered.
And if anybody's not familiar, Alderman Stroman, a bunch of meetings where there was
Yeah,
talk about 65 Main Street and the police station, you always brought up, hey, what about the seniors? What about
right,
I was talking to seniors today. What about the seniors?
right. For the seniors, it was tough during the budget season, trying to figure out, how to do the budget so that we didn't have to raise taxes. I think a lot of my input in that, I felt comfortable with that type. So I'm proud of the fact that we were able to do I thought we did a very good budget, to be honest with you. So I don't know, Gene, I was a little disappointed because of how COVID hit. One of the things that I really wanted to try and do was have a ward meeting, for the fourth ward.
Oh, right. Yeah, you can't even do those.
Right. We couldn't do that because I really want to get the input of the individuals. I mean, we sit there as a group of individuals, 14 of us sit at a table to talk about what we think the needs are of the individuals. But my thing is, is that truly representative of the community, of what the people actually want? So my goal, I would like to do, is to get more feedback from the community to say, this is what we think our needs are. And then we sit down and say, okay, let's look at this. How do we balance it? How do we balance quality of life with economics? Because it costs to do things. It costs to run the city. It costs to run a business. But also, what about the quality of life of individuals, what people want, what they're looking for? So being able to balance that. So I'm hoping that my presence on the board and my input, my work with individuals out in the community will be able to help try to maintain that balance.
And then,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it definitely does. I mean, I get what you're saying about there is this interplay happening in Ansonia all the time, and in Derby too, where I live, where obviously we all want more tax revenue from businesses and commercial entities and industrial entities where appropriate, and high-end manufacturing. But then at what point, because I'm on Hawthorne Avenue, or in your ward, it's probably similar, but I don't want like the crane company right behind me. So everything can't be about just revenue and tax revenue. There has to be that balance. I think that's what you were, right? Did I interpret that right?
Correct.
Much more eloquent than I am. I don't know what I'm doing. But if I were to ask you, what do you see as, or like, what are your issues in Ansonia? What do you see as the top issues in Ansonia? Usually that's like a mayoral question, but I'm asking all the aldermen and alderwomen candidates that question.
Well, when I think about it, and then when I'm talking to people, because we're such a diverse, this ward is a very much so diverse ward. You have the seniors, you have the middle age, the folks that are working, and you got young parents with children. And a lot of the information I'm getting some feedback from are, like some folks are saying, there's not enough for the children to do, not enough for youth. If you're not in sports, then there's no activity for the kids. So what are we doing for the children? There's used to be summer employment programs where the kids during the summer had summer jobs. That has not happened because we have budget issues, but those are some of the concerns. Teens being able to find employment to help with the families economically. As you know, we're such an economically distressed community that we need everybody. I mean, a lot of the households need everyone that are of age to be able to work and to contribute. So if some of the teens were able to find employment, then that means that they can help economically within the household. What else was there? Well, I had to see, I talked to a couple of seniors, and some of the seniors are, they want us to move more quickly with the senior center because they would have a place to be able to socialize and have their meals.
Yeah.
The
May I just jump in for 1 second there? Do you think, let me ask you a question about the senior center.
oh Lord, okay.
Because I'm just going to ask it. Do you think that there's this talk of Derby seniors coming in there, and last I heard, Derby, the city, would pay $300,000 up front to be, to merge. They would pay some construction costs, and then they would pay 50% or whatever it is of the annual budget, from what I heard. Does Ansonia need that $300,000 to complete that senior center? I may be repeating a rumor here, and I apologize. Go ahead.
No, no, they don't. At the last Board of Aldermen meeting, the Board of Aldermen approved the dollars that were necessary to complete the project that would come out of Ansonia's budget. So either if Derby comes or if Derby doesn't come, the senior center is being built. So
Gotcha.
they're not relying on those dollars to be able to complete the project or to do the project.
So the idea, what's the motivation to invite Derby to come aboard?
I think it's like regionalization. I think, well, you have a lot of seniors who are already Derby. Some Derby seniors are already part of Ansonia. Ansonia is already part of Derby. I mean, there is cost effectiveness in doing so. Certainly, because you wouldn't have two directors, you'd have one director, you'd have staff, but also I think it also will enhance programs. There are some things that Derby's doing that Ansonia is not doing. There are some things Ansonia is doing that Derby is not doing. So I think by coming together as one, plus we have a new building, and and a lot of the Derby seniors are not happy with the building that they're in. It's an older building and it can't be upkept. So, I think it's a win-win.
Okay, that's interesting to hear. Yeah, because we have, there's always that, well, Mayor Cassetti's a Republican and Mayor Zekin's a Republican. They're getting together, but this seems to have.
That's where politics comes in. And and it's not about politics. It's about what's the best for the individuals. What's the best for the seniors within the community. And I think if you talk to a lot of the seniors, they'll say that the best is for them to be in a new building that everybody will be in. They'll be able to have bigger programs, maybe more opportunity to do things together that you can't do it as an individual because now you may have I call it a shared budget. So your budget may be able to allow you to be able to do bigger and better things that you were able to do if you were there by yourself.
And then, Alderwoman Stroman, what's your take or your position on Olesen Drive? That's, for anybody who's unfamiliar, that's the former Riverside federally subsidized apartments on Olesen Drive in Ansonia. They have been torn down over a series of years. It's now an open meadow, and there is a plan afoot by the Cassetti administration to acquire the land from the Ansonia Housing Authority and possibly sell it to a private developer who would develop it privately, recreation type use. Where do you stand on that?
Well, Gene, one of the I shouldn't say one of the problems I have. I guess one of the concerns I have is personally, I don't have enough information. I think that there's more information that I need to know about to find out one about the RFP that was submitted, as well as we're being told that there has not been a contract of any sort that has been signed or anything of that nature. I do think that, again, it's a balancing act. I think that what we probably need to do is look at, again, the economics as well as the quality of life of what people are, what the needs are. And, I also think that we should listen to what people in the community said they would like to have. We certainly got hit big time. I call it big time. I think we certainly took a hit when the YMCA closed up. So a lot of people are saying, well, gee, we don't have the Y anymore. What are we looking at that? When I say the Y, I'm talking about the swimming pool, the basketball, those types of things. So I think there certainly needs to be more, it needs to be looked at more deeply than just than just saying that it's going to go to this contractor. I truly don't think that if you're going to pay a certain dollar amount for the land, you shouldn't take a loss at selling it to anyone.
Gotcha.
I mean,
Yep.
you're paying X number of dollars for the land, then you probably should sell it for X number of dollars. That part I'm not understanding. And so there needs to be more conversation with those of us that are on the Board of Aldermen, as well as I think input from the community on what the community wants. But again, it's a balancing act, knowing what the economics are, and as well as what the quality of life of what people want, and see how we can blend that together so that everybody's happy.
Understood. Thank you so much. The last question I'll ask you, is there anything else that I haven't brought up that you want people to know or that you wanted to talk about?
No, not really, Gene.
Yeah, I think we had a good 30 minutes. Now I'm going to get in trouble because, you were too long with Diane Stroman. But we had a good 27 minutes.
I think one of the things that I look forward to, as far as if I'm voted to be back on, certainly is the economic development. There's so much we can do. We have the Ansonia Copper and Brass, the Farrell's property. We have the Ansonia Mall. Really like to work towards trying to see what we can do to bring in some real nice, to develop it so that jobs are there. So we have, we can't build it like it was before with the American Brass and the Farrells and all of that. But I do hope that what we'll be able to do is try and build it up so that people can see that there is career opportunities here in Ansonia.
You like some type of manufacturing?
I think some type of manufacturing, hopefully maybe some high-tech type of jobs. I think it's great that, we have what we call Restaurant Row with all the restaurants that are coming in. So now that we're doing that and we're establishing that, the next step is, okay, so now how do we build it up to another level?
Where people can work and make a living. Because one of the things in Ansonia and Derby, a lot of the old factories, you get replaced with minimum wage jobs or retail jobs where the corporations are making $1 billion, but the people who live in the community aren't seeing, you can't work one job and make a living, it seems a lot these days.
Right. It's very difficult to be able to do that, especially with the cost of rents that are so high. When you talk to folks, when we talk about the team, what team was trying to do was just help people with their basic needs. And that's what we find truly that people are really still struggling with, is how do I just meet basic needs, which is, the rent, your food, your medical, just basic stuff that some of us take for granted. And there are people that are struggling big time in our community just to make those things happen. And yeah, some folks working 2 jobs. Then the problem is when you're working 2 jobs and you have children, you're a parent, how do you manage all that? How do you help them with the schoolwork? How are you there for them?
Yeah, the stresses definitely add up, and I'm fortunate enough to be, keeping my head above the water. But yeah, it's especially with COVID, it's sort of a scary time, and it's especially scary because I'm on Facebook all the time. Everybody that's looking for apartments because the landlord just sold the house because the housing market is so insane. Everybody's making $1 billion, $1 million selling their home. So it's interesting times that are happening. It is. All right, Alderman Stroman, those are all my questions. I want to thank you so much for putting yourself through this. It's just something you step up, you run for alderman, and then you got to talk to my goofy face for 30 minutes.
That's okay, Gene. I always love talking to you.
All right, take care.
All right, then you have a good one.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.